Okay, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Town Regionalization Planning Board Finances Transportation Facilities Subcommittee. Tuesday, October 5th, 2021, 4:34 p.m. We are conducting this meeting over Zoom because of the ongoing pandemic considerations. So everything will be done by roll call, and the meeting is being recorded. First order of business is to see who will be taking minutes. Michelle or Lynn, do I have a volunteer?
Well, Lynn's talking.
Lynn, you're muted.
I need to leave by 6 at the latest.
Okay, is that a yes or no?
Can we end the meeting at 6?
We can try.
Okay, all right, then I'll do it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. There will be a recording if it goes longer. Okay, we don't have minutes of, actually I have to do a roll call attendance, I guess. So Michelle Geruso.
Here.
Lynn Reynolds.
Present.
Alan Genovese.
Present.
Mike Naughton present. David Young, we're expecting. Jane Dutcher, we're expecting. And Cassie Demkoller, we're expecting. We also have Mark Abrahams and Matt Abrahams from the Abrahams Group, and Brian Beck from Gilmontague Regional School District. And Joanne Blyer. Welcome, Joanne, from Gilmontague. So we don't have any minutes to approve. Why don't we move along to first of all, we did just get an update on the budget tool from Matt. I just got it a few minutes ago, so I sent it around. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I wonder if anybody have any feedback they would like to share on what we've received so far.
I have looked at it. As far as taking sections out and, taking an Excel budget, I did not do that. But I think as long as we have the expenses and everything in the deliverables, I think we can build a budget. The only thing I'm questioning, and Matt, maybe you have an update, is education courses. Were you going to do something with that from the education committee? So we could build a budget, or
meaning design it based on some ed plan. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I was looking at the RFQ, and where did I see it? Said something about education, and I went, "Oh, you're doing that?"
Well, could I just jump in here?
Oh, based on combined
I thought, yeah, I thought the intent was they would have spots, the ability to, as we move forward and we find out what the community wants for courses and what the staff wants and so forth, that the tool would allow us to just, would have those cells or whatever you call them available. So all we'd have to do is plug in, the course. In other words, we'd plug in the information and it would generate what we need. But I don't think it's a fair expectation to think that they were going to get that in advance or get that from the education subcommittee. We just wanted to make sure we had the ability to do that once, moving forward and we get more input from the community. So I thought they did that, but I may be wrong, Matt. So I'll turn it over to you.
So the tool is set up in such a way that you or anyone who uses it can set up a budget in whatever manner that person chooses. We currently don't have it matched to an ed plan, as Michelle just referenced a moment ago. The way that we have it set up currently is we just took both FY22 budgets for both districts, and they're both in there currently.
Mhm.
But it is easy. And I know Mike has played around with this a little bit himself. It is easy to move things in and out of what's currently in there. So for example, if we've just combined two district budgets, currently you're going to have two superintendents, you're going to have two central offices, you're going to have two sped departments. So, you know, those things may, once people start moving things in and out, some of those things may come out. But, you know, we don't have it currently matching an ed plan, as Michelle referenced a moment ago.
So can I ask another clarifying question, Mike? Why did I, and maybe I had a false, idea. So I thought that the tool, there would be this, this template that would be a combined budget now, but it would just have all the cells there and would show like a superintendent, a business administrator, X number of things that we could just keep adding teachers for courses and programs and that kind of thing. So there'd be I don't know, a template or something that we'd create by pulling together one superintendent and plugging in what we thought the salary would be, and the language arts or the science program, instead of 3 teachers, we could plug in 5 teachers if that's what came to pass. So does this tool allow us to have that capability without us creating it? Does it exist?
Right. Are you asking, is it there? The answer is no. Well, let's put it this way. The capability of doing that is there. It
Okay.
hasn't been done.
Right.
Okay. My belief at this point, and Mark and Matt, feel free to chime in on this, is that when they responded to the RFQ, they were expecting / hoping to get some sort of an ed plan from the education subcommittee that they could then use to produce a sample budget for a sample regional combined region, kind of in the way that the previous report did for the program 1 and the program 2. Although in that report, we just got kind of top line budgets for those 2 programs and a little bit of detail about where those numbers came from. I think my vision starting this process was that we would have had a lot more detail showing how those budgets were built, but that would have depended on the education subcommittee coming up with what that would have involved in terms of staffing. And we didn't get anything like that. We haven't gotten anything like that from them yet. And we've discussed that, and we've agreed that it doesn't look we are going to in the near future. So it hasn't been done. That's where I see things being.
Okay, so it hasn't been done, and it's certainly through no fault of Matt and Mark, because I believe that if they had that information, that would have happened. So they certainly can't invent something that if they don't get the data, they can't create the use
Right,
of it.
and that's
We have
not
the
not the only instance of what of where that's happened, which we can. I mean, some stuff having nothing to do with the tool. I think that's also true. But that's my understanding of the tool.
Okay.
Where we are is, yes, we have the capability in the sense that we have a tool that has all the components basically drawn from the 2 existing budgets that make up a combined budget that is the sum of those 2 budgets, basically. And we can adjust it any way we want. But specifically to your question, Alan, we do have to do that. Yes, we have to adjust all that.
As long as we have the capability, then I'm glad to hear that. That's great.
Okay. Just I'm curious. Can I get kind of a show of hands of who has made any attempt to do that?
I have not.
What do you mean, to pull them out and put it in a?
Well, just to make adjustments in the budget that you know, in using the budget tool to, for example, simple example, you know, have one superintendent instead of two superintendents.
Oh, yeah, I played around with it, but, you know, I did not have, what I didn't do is build the budget. You know,
Right,
I just went in and said, oh, I could have this superintendent and this teacher and that, you know.
right,
But I didn't actually have another Excel. I didn't put it in another Excel spreadsheet or anything,
right.
is what I meant, to build the
And I'd
budget.
say I did pretty much the same thing. I kind of verified that if I wanted to get rid of one superintendent and change the salary on another one,
Yeah,
that was possible. But there wasn't enough information. I went back to the stuff we got from Mars and discovered it was really pretty sketchy. We got a suggested central office staffing that really seemed incomplete. Hello, David. David
Hello.
Young has joined us at 4:45. David, we're talking about the budget tool and giving feedback to Matt, talking about its capabilities in terms of building a budget for a truly combined district. And whether anybody has had a chance to play around with that. Michelle and I have done a little bit. Have you had a chance to do any of that?
My connection just broke up. Sorry. But I don't want to make everybody plow back, so let me just join.
Okay.
so Mike, what I envision is I would not know about the courses. I envision we have to sit in a room, hopefully someday, and someone say to us what is needed for courses. I mean, I don't think the finance committee can do this on its own. We need to partner with the education team and other people on the committee.
So Michelle, that
Absolutely
is-
agree.
Yeah, so that's what's supposed to happen next with our facilitator. When the facilitator goes out and talks to parents and students and we can do that in the schools and so forth, and teachers and administrators, part of that sharing what we have, seeing how people think and feel about this will include, you know, what if there was a, you know, new school district formed, what is it that you'd be looking for, you know, for courses and so forth, asking students and parents. And so we would be getting that information as feedback and as in our surveys. Once we have that, if the recommendation is to go forward, then we would start, you know, populating the, you know, what does that look like? Or we could do that to present in another forum. So we need to go out and get that information from, as you know, we've had very, because of the pandemic, small groups and limited feedback from the various stakeholders. You know, the facilitation now and facilitator will be able to get a much broader perspective from all our stakeholders. And that's one of the key components. What would you like to see? And then it, you know, from there, it'll be fairly easy to plug that information in. You know, we need another language teacher and they're you know, and then we plug in what we think the salary would be and so forth. So we couldn't really create that yet. And it would have been at this point, perhaps a little bit naive to try to create something without having a base of support from what our stakeholders are expecting.
But we think we've given you the functionality
Mhm.
in the tools so that when you do sit down and get that input, you'll be able to enter that into the tool.
Right.
Yeah.
So budgeting starts with the comprehensive calendar, the schedule. And I presume we're working from that in each case. It shows the courses offered and the number of sections and
I don't know.
did we get access to those? I mean, I have Pioneers. I've requested them. That's how years ago I discovered we were running 3 sections with 7, 8 kids per section. And along the way, we tamped that down to 2 sections of 10, 11 kids instead.
Right, and that's what is. We're talking about what would be. And so the 2 separate budget reflects what is in the, you know, in the district for our expenses. I think we're envisioning going forward. And when we get this information from our constituents, particularly students, I'd love to hear, you know, what do they want? Then that will allow us to build a budget. And, you know, the budget is supposed to reflect the educational plan for the district. And so what we're really missing is what could be possible and what people envision of what that educational plan would look like. When we get that information, we'll be able to then create this new regional school district budget to see what that looks like.
Right. And David, to your question, I don't believe this subcommittee has received that information for either district. I'm not sure that's, I mean, you know, other people can speak up. I'm not sure that's something we want, because I do see it as that coming from the education subcommittee, that they're the ones who would decide, you know, in a new district, let's have X number of sections of this and Y number of sections of that. And that's going to require this sort of staffing to make it happen. And what we would get from them is their end product, which is, here's the staff we need at the different levels, that we would then be able to plug into this tool to say, okay, here's an estimated cost for doing all that.
Right.
Well, we
That's the way I
did
see it.
have a jumping off point, though, that we're not here looking for cost savings. We're here looking to maintain our current offerings and expand. So we ought to define what our current offerings are.
Well, that will be shared. That would be shared if, you know, with a facilitator. I think we need to go back and just for a minute, remind ourselves that small groups were put together for the education subcommittee to, you know, talk to, interview with the consultants. And from that information, you know, they got some ideas, but it was very limited, and therefore, you know, it was just, here are some ideas of what could be. And from that was a survey to help the facilitator, because that's the next step in our process, glean specifics. So that was really what ended up being the focus of the education subcommittee. They got enough information from various stakeholders to be able to create a survey to be able to glean more information through a facilitator. So I see the facilitator and the education subcommittee working very closely with the facilitator, or closely together. And I also see that we're going to have to divvy up our responsibility as members of the 6 Town Regional Planning Board to attend each of the forums and so forth, you know, be available. Some will be in person, some will be remote, because there'll be questions that people will ask the facilitator that they're not going to be able to answer. You know, only we will be able to. So we'll be there to provide some assistance. So I hope we're not, you know, getting hung up on the tool can't be, as long as the tool has the ability for us to plug in the needs of what a district could look like and what the offerings would be, then I think that, you know, in my opinion, Matt and Mark, you know, met that threshold and gave us what they could give us without having the specific function or the specifics on what would be taught in a new district.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
I'm in agreement with that. I was just posing the question, where are we supposed to get the educational programs from? So,
And
yeah,
that will be through the facilitator and all the stakeholders that we're
Okay.
going to talk about. I
That's-
certainly don't expect the finance committees and boards of selectmen and so forth. That should be coming from administrators, parents, students, and teachers.
okay.
David, do you have more on that?
Oh, I don't necessarily agree. I mean, I think we can, but let's move on.
Okay, well,
And-
I want to give you a chance, but if, you know,
He's not talking about the tool, Mike. I think he means, right, Dave?
Yes, that's
You're not
right.
talking about the tool itself here.
okay, well, we can stay
What he would
focused on the
like to
tool
do.
and we can talk more later.
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to suggest that the tool has been enhanced beyond what you've seen. We've added the revenue section. We've added the enrollment section. We've added the assessment section. So that when you come up with that one singular combined 6-town budget, gross budget, you have the ability to plug in the revenue numbers for common revenues, to total that, to get to an amount to be assessed. And then Matt's Matt's created 4 sections of the assessments. 1, the municipal, local, district contributions from the towns. 2, the excess of net school spending over the requirement. 3, the transportation assessment. 4, the debt and capital assessment. For the latter, he's plugged in your ability to split that because Pioneer Valley has a methodology to split 50-50 between EQV and enrollment. Based on our discussions with Mike over the last 2 weeks, Mike wanted to use as the denominator foundation enrollment. We've put in the last 5 or 6 years of foundation enrollment into the tool. We're using for now the average of the last 5 years of foundation enrollment to do the assessments to the 6 towns for each of the assessment categories other than the minimum which the state provides. We've included updates in the tool on SOA numbers from the SOA projections. Remember, the phase 2 report was based on last year's SOA projections. This tool now has this year's fiscal 22's SOA projections. So I do want to give Matt an opportunity before he leaves to explain what's been added to the tool, if that's okay with you, Mike.
Well, if that's what you want, I mean, I also want to make sure that he gets feedback before he
Yep.
leaves.
Yep.
I mean, I'm guessing that pretty much nobody has had a chance to really check out the tool. So is there more feedback that people would like to offer? I just have one thing, Matt. I know I already told you that things look good, and they do. I was playing around with it a little bit today, and I find it cumbersome that there's no tab that summarizes the Pioneer FY22 budget. And I assume that's because when they gave you their budget, they didn't include that. I've seen their budget presented in formats for some public hearings they had last winter. where there was a summary tab. And I don't know, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it just, I was sort of looking for differences between the combined budget and the two individual budgets. And I know you've noted that there are a few differences, numbers that don't quite correspond with each other. And it was fairly straightforward with Gilmonte because it was all on one tab.
Yep.
With Pioneer, you got however, whatever it is, there's like 16 tabs or something. And it just, I mean, I decided I wasn't going to bother trying to trace everything through
Yeah,
to
I don't
figure
blame
out
you.
what was going on.
I don't blame you there.
And and then I thought, well, I can't believe the Pioneer School Committee deals with this. They've got to get a summary version somehow. So I went out to their website, but I also found that Mark had sent some stuff last spring that has that. So it's not a huge deal, but I just figured I'd mention it because
Yep. Mike, so just in response to what you just said, yes, there is a summary page that Pioneer has as part of their budget. You're probably aware of that. It is at a high level though, I believe. So, there's a tab for athletics, for example, there's a tab for central office, there's a tab for facilities inside their budget, and that gets down
Right.
at the detail level, at the account level. And then there's a summary that I think has one line for each of those. I'm speaking without looking at it, so I may be slightly off here, but I think there's a line for athletics. So you'll get the total
you're right.
athletics.
You're right.
Yeah, then you'll get the total central office, and then you'll get the total facilities and so on and so forth. So are you looking to get that summary in there, or do you want to see all the detail on one tab? What's your preference there?
I don't have a preference. Really, I was just commenting that in trying to cross-check the total number for the Pioneer budget, there's a couple of totals showing up on the the tab where we make all the changes. That's the combined budget tab, but I didn't see any other tab. There's the total from Gilmonte who I was able to tie back to the Gilmonte tab, but I didn't find any way of tying back the Pioneer total. And that, other than sort of double checking that number, I'm not sure what the usefulness of that tab would be. But it did strike me that it's always nice to be able to double check the bottom line number, because if it's the same, that's a good sign, and if it's not, then
Yep. So Mike, can I just show you one thing that I think might help? Mike, you can tell me if it helps or if it doesn't. Do you mind if I share a file?
Oh, sure. Hang on one second. Let me make sure you're allowed to do that.
Just
There
in
you go.
direct response to what we're talking about right now. Okay, yep, it's working. Okay, you should be able to see a file now, yep. Can you see this Excel file?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the latest version of the tool. It's similar to the prior version that people have had for a few weeks now, or maybe it's been a week or two. I don't even remember exactly, but except for some stuff for assessments, revenues that my dad mentioned. But I just want to draw your attention to right here. So this is on the details combined region budget tab. So this is where the first stop where all the detail comes in based on the selections made on the two purple tabs. What I did here was I typed in dollar amounts that I know are the actual budgeted amounts down here at the bottom on rows 503 and 504. And these are the numbers that I was trying to hit with building those budgets. So I just want to make sure you were aware of that. And then right here,
Right. Okay. Yep.
I
I see that.
Yep, right here I have a comparison so I can see how far I'm off. And then based on things that I've noticed throughout this process, I'm consistently off, and I've been able to figure out why. So I made notes as to why just below that. So I'm able to explain each of the differences here. That's just FYI
Okay.
for you. So you're aware. So now this isn't the same as having the sheet that you're talking about, but at least there is a target number here that I was trying to hit for the two different districts here.
Right. Yeah, and I did see that section, and that's what I was looking at actually. And as I say, I was able to tie that Gilmontague total, the 21,597, 185, is right over there on their sheet for their general fund budget. There's no similar number in this tool for Pioneer, the 14,851, 290. I did find it in another file that I have, the one I got from Mark actually back in May.
Yeah.
And that's probably good enough. I mean,
Well, it wouldn't take me long to give you a summary sheet, Mike. I think the detail sheet would take a little bit longer if I were to put every single line item in there.
yeah, well, I mean, because that's not, I mean, as you say, that Pioneer doesn't do it that way. They have all
Right.
the individual tabs
Right.
that then tie to that summary tab. And I was just thinking, gee, if it wouldn't be a big deal, having that summary tab in this tool would save a step of having to hunt around for, whatever file was the latest version of the budget, basically.
Matt, can you have all the tabs, the 16 tabs, come into a summary? Or is that a lot of work?
That's a lot of work, Alan.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a lot. It's just tedious, but it's doable. It'd probably take me an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that to do. But the negative there is, it's not the way that they currently have their budget file.
Yeah,
You're
It's
kind
probably-
of creating a separate sheet. And then, would you, assuming you work on this with FY23 budgets, would you also then do the same with the FY23 budget? So,
No. I would think, Matt, if we're building a budget after we get this information, we would be using Gil Montague's model to populate so that we can get the summary.
yeah, it's definitely an easier budget to work with, a budget file to work with than Pioneers, for sure.
Yeah.
Pioneers is a little all over the place. And I even have the tabs in here, as Mike mentioned when he did his reconciling. There's Gil Montague's tab, it's on one tab, and then Pioneers is on multiple tabs. So it's just harder to work with.
So we use Gil Montague's.
Yeah.
I don't know if Joanne has any comment on any of this since as a business administrator. Joanne, thoughts? She there? She's still with us?
Yes, she is.
I like my way better too.
I was going to say, Joanne, Brian should have heard that last comment.
How about Pioneer's retiree health insurance? My memory is that it is not met as part of the general fund, and the only thing I just saw in that screen share was a fair number in a grants line, but I don't think that's how. So my point being, there are some significant operating expenses at Pioneer that are not in the general fund.
Mhm.
Yep. And for expenses, I've captured all that. We'll go back to that other tab. There's a column here for general fund, and then there's a column for other funding sources. And you can see, Dave, that might be what you're referring to, over $1.5 million.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a grant, though. I thought it was a fund.
Yep. I don't know what the exact funding source is. That was just a question I never got answered from Tanya. So I just lumped them in the grants column.
All right, that explains it.
Because
Thank you.
I don't have it. I don't have the specific.
That's
Funding
something we can fix when we clarify what the funding source is, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can break it out later.
It seems like a really huge number to be coming from some grant, even if it were school choice, or I can't imagine what grant they have that would have that much
No,
money in it.
it's not. I believe it is net school choice is the account
The school choice,
I believe so.
eh,
I can
which they're
find, I
not,
can find that rather than run off memory, but
Right.
that has an answer and it's easy.
yeah, they don't have that much money coming from school choice each year.
No, that's the sum of a number of funds, I imagine, or grants.
Mm.
I would won't go out on a limb here and suggest that that might be an exercise for people familiar with the Pioneer budget to kind of double check and make sure that numbers are showing up in the right column here.
Yeah, if you look at the number for grants or the ESSER grant or any of those numbers for Gilmontague, they add up maybe to about the same amount, but Gilmontague has a lot more money coming from grants because it's higher poverty and the grants are larger.
Hmm.
We obviously have something else in there, which we can find out later what it is.
Good. Well, we got about 5 more minutes with Matt here, so. Do people have more questions? Comments?
How did we leave so we're not going to do, right? It'd be kind of a act of futility to try to then do a summary of Pioneer. We're just going to leave that alone, right?
So I think it wouldn't be a heavy lift for me to add a summary sheet like Pioneer has in their regular budget file. So I'm planning on doing that unless someone tells me I shouldn't.
No, that's good.
No, if that could be done, I think it would be an improvement.
Okay,
And thank you.
sure. Do you want me to run through the revenue assessment stuff real quick, Mike?
Sure, if you want. I mean, I think I pretty much understood what Mark said, but if you think you can do it in 5 minutes, go for it.
I can do it quickly so everyone follow along. What I did was, this is new since this is new in the version that was forwarded today. There are 6 new tabs that are kind of in this like orangey color here. And they're all related to revenues or related to assessments. I pulled in the revenues from the FY22 budgets for both of the districts on these 2 tabs. This tab is combined all the revenues for the general fund for both tabs. For both districts. So it's kind of taken the detail on those other 2 tabs, pulling them together here. I did a foundation enrollment tab. This is data that I got from DESE. I went all the way back to FY15. So you have, what's that? That's 8 years worth, I believe, of foundation enrollment data, and threw some averages in here as well, off to the right, that could be used for assessing. There's also a graph here that shows the enrollment by year, going left to right. My computer's freezing a little bit. Then the next tab is the Chapter 78 simulation that my dad referenced earlier. And the reason why we thought it was important to pull this in was because that's going to be one of the common revenues that is part of the assessment calculation. And then here's the assessments tab. So this tab is the busiest tab, and this is where the most work would be done in terms of typing in numbers, doing configurable stuff. There are instructions on this tab that's going to walk you through it. So I recommend you look at it on your own time and look at the instructions, but I'll quickly go through it. And this is laid out similarly to, I believe, assessment tabs that have been shared with this group in the past. It's just, it's just constructed in the way that I might create a spreadsheet. So the top box here is really the assessment, the main assessment piece, but it's supported by calculations that are done down below, and I'll show you that in a second. So this this regional budget number is taken from the expenditure outputs that are in this file. So if you start moving things in and out like we talked about, that number is going to change. So if you take out, right now, that number represents the two budgets completely together. And that's the general fund number. If you remove one superintendent office, that's going to go down. So keep that in mind, and it's linked. So any changes, that number will update. Here are your common revenues, which are taken from that other tab I just showed a moment ago, except that Chapter 78 number is from the simulation I just showed. You back out the common revenues, that's the total amount to be assessed. Now, let's go down and focus on the three assessment areas next. First box is capital and debt. I typed in this number. That number may not be correct, so just keep that in mind. But that's why it's in orange. It's a configurable number that people can type in. My dad mentioned two different assessment methodologies. I put two boxes here. So you have one option here, and you have one option over here. And you're going to break it down based on the percentage. So if you wanted just to use one assessment methodology, then the one on the left is going to have 100%. But if you wanted to use two, you could set it to 50%, and then you're going to have the other 50% automatically over here using some other assessment methodology. This is a free text field, so it's really, you can type in whatever you want, but it's just there to kind of memorialize what you're doing. So if you're using the FY22 foundation budget, or if you're using a 5-year foundation average, you can type in whatever you want. It's just so as a reminder for what it truly is. If you want to use enrollment, foundation enrollment, you can link to the other tab here, and I highly recommend doing that as opposed to typing in the numbers. It's just easier.
Because you got to decide if it's a 5-year average, 3-year average, or just the latest foundation enrollment figure.
Yep. And you can also do, if you wanted to use EQV, you could do that. It's just I don't have those numbers readily available. So either you can provide them to me, or we can get them a different way, or you can just type them in on your own here in the orange. So you can just start, typing in whatever numbers you want, and it'll automatically do those calculations for you. Then just below are the calculations based on the percentages that are determined here. So it's going to divvy up the assessment going left to right here. And then if we go back up to the top, those numbers appear on this line here. All right, it's all linked. Just below the capital debt portion is the same table, but for transportation, the same exact setup. So you start with the number that needs to be assessed for transportation, and then you do your methodologies. And don't worry about what's here. This is just me playing around. Anything can be set up in these different boxes here. And then down below, the third one is the excess. The calculation at the top determines what needs to be assessed in this area. And then at that point, it's the same exact setup. You determine your methodologies down below. So going back to the top, my computer will cooperate. That's the capital debt line. That's the transportation line. That's the excess line. Adds up to the total. If you include the minimum, adds up to the total. And then your comparison to the current assessments, which I typed in based on what the FY22 assessments are. And I know I flew through that, and I'm sure you're going to want to look at it in your own time, but hopefully you understood most of that.
That's a good
That looks
summary.
nice, Matt. Thank you.
Yep.
Looks good.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome.
So in short, we think we've given you the functionality that you've asked for. You need to play with this, but at some point in time, we need to be complete so you can close out this portion of the grant.
Here, here.
Okay. Okay, so to clarify, Mark, what you just said is you're not expecting to provide any more updates unless we come back to you and say, we think something's missing.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank
So let me just say one thing, and this is a question for Mike and the group. Mike, we talked about linking at one point of the expenditures to the budgets. I've done that in this latest pass. just this latest pass, not the prior version. If you look at these amounts, these are the non-salaries. Everything is linked here. If you're looking at the bar up here, everything is linked now to the budgets. So that part's done. On the salary side, it's trickier because we've done calculations based on contracts. If it's not related to a contract, like this cell right here, it's linked. But if it is related to a contract, I currently don't have that linked to like a roster or a salary list or anything like that. So in my mind, that might be a missing piece. You know, I was going to raise that today and just see if that was something we should work on. We could throw together a roster and link it, but the problem there is that it's just, this came from many different lists. But we could put everything together in one list if the group thought that that was helpful. So as my dad just mentioned, yeah, we think we're done, we're close. If this needs to be done, then that's an additional step that we need to do.
Are you saying a name roster? Is that what you mean, Matt?
It wouldn't be a name roster. It would,
Okay.
because that was something that was important to the finance, the business manager to not include names.
Right, because there's a lot of changes.
Yeah,
this year.
but it would
Okay.
be like, for example, where did teacher lane D step 15 come from? You know, is that,
Okay,
it would be linking to a list that had that and also had, you know, this person's a technology teacher, for example.
okay.
It would be something like that. And to show you where that originally came from, because you know, just so I didn't pull it out of thin air, so to speak.
And so for that reason, you also didn't link this to benefits, because then that would tie the teacher to the benefit.
Well, we talked about that. The benefits is high level only. We only have summary tables in here,
Okay, thank you.
but the
Yeah.
benefits are in here at a summary level.
Thank you.
Matt, I'm just trying to understand. So this, we are looking at people, right? Staff,
Yep, this is the
And-
salaries tab. Yep,
right? And the staff is divided into people who are union and people who aren't. And the people who are union, the dollar amounts are linked to the schedules that are on another tab.
yes.
And if they're not union, you're saying that they are linked unless they have a contract?
If they are not union, they are linked automatically. They are all linked if they're non-union. I'm talking about union only.
Oh,
So
so
here's-
union only, there are union people who don't have a contract and therefore they don't link to a schedule?
No, they are.
I'm
they
trying to
do-
understand who who the people
Yep.
who aren't linked are.
Sorry, maybe I didn't do a good job explaining it. All the employees that are on a salary schedule are linked to a salary schedule.
Okay,
It's just they're not linked to some salary, to some list of employees that we may have gotten from the districts. There's no other source. Like, for example, these substitutes, this long-term sub, this is linked to the actual budgets themselves, okay? It's a budget line item. These teachers roll up into one budget line item. So we don't have it linked to the budget because that's just too complicated. We do have it linked to the salary schedules, like we said, but I could also do additional linking, like over in this area, to show where lane D came from, where step 7 came from. You know, just to show a roster of teachers and link to that. That's really the only missing piece in my mind. You're not going to link to salaries because that's calculated based on the salary schedule, but you could link to some roster of teachers. I guess that's my point.
okay.
Am I making sense?
Well, I guess I'm slow. I don't quite understand. Can you show us an example? Maybe that would help clarify it.
Yeah, I can. Excuse me, just one second, Mike. All right. All right, sorry. Okay, so here's an example. You still with me?
I'm with you,
Okay,
I think.
so, yeah, I know. I made this more confusing than I probably should have, and I apologize for that. This list right here, I came from Joanne, I believe. And this is a list of all the admin assistants in the district. So this is a source that I use for figuring out how to calculate these individual salaries and to put them in here into the, well, I just changed the file into my main file. So I could include this tab in the budget file and link to some of the information here, like for example, the number of days, the number of hours, what the contract, which contract to use. You know, there's additional linking that could take place so you know the source of how I figured out that that employee needs to be included.
Okay, and in the main file, that's just a number that's been typed in?
Yep, so I can show you. So this particular person is, let's use one that's obvious. So the Hillcrest Elementary Admin Assistant, let's go find that one. I gotta reshare the other one. Guessing it's this individual here. I'm gonna make this larger so you can see a little easier. So yes, so this is all typed in. See how it's not linked? I just typed these numbers in. So I took the information that I learned from working off of that other file, and I created this individual, and I typed in the necessary information to get at that person's salary.
Okay, I see. So you were talking about rows QRS.
Yep, so what the union is, what the lane is, what the step is, hours per day, days per year. These are all things that are unique to individuals.
Okay.
So they could
So
be
the one
linked.
problem is that I can't see which cells you're highlighting, so I'm trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's this group right here.
That's a. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. How big a deal would it be to put the roster into this tool? I'm just thinking that my sort of baseline is, it'd be nice if everything on these two tabs, the expense tabs, were linked to something that if they're, just because then, if we're trying to follow something back, or if we say, well, let's change something, we go change it back on the, maybe we go and change the roster,
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be doing that with the a salary schedule for a combined district. If we set up a new salary schedule, we're going to be then linking back to that to get the cost of all the individual people.
Yep.
So I'm just thinking, and maybe I'm heading in the wrong direction here, but I'm just thinking that having everything linked would be good. That having numbers just typed in, we are going to say at some point, somebody's going to say, where did that number come from?
Yep.
And it just seems like it's going to be harder to try to make sure that all of those numbers are explained somewhere than it would be to just have a table and link them.
Yep.
And then say this table came from such and such a file from Joanne, or such and such a file from Tanya, or something.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. It's just that it's all different, many different lists, but there's no reason why I couldn't combine the list and just complete that last piece of linking. So
okay,
I think it makes sense.
I mean, it could certainly be all on this. All those different things could be on one tab.
Yep.
And maybe all one part of one list. I mean, different sections or something.
Yep. Okay.
But I mean, I understand that you'd like to think you're done. And
yes.
I think we'd all like to think you're done.
Yeah. No. Yep. We're interested in wrapping it up, but we also want to give you something that is right and is exactly what you want. So I think it makes sense to do that as well.
Yeah, I just think that linking is good. This linking is, I mean, it seems like it's really powerful, all the places where it exists. And so to have a place where it's not, it just seems like if we can avoid that, it'd be better.
Yep.
To me, I don't know. Maybe Michelle, David, Lynn. I don't
I
know how you
agree with
feel.
you, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I see people in the parking lot. I just wanted you to know that I might have to leave as people come in. I'm at the town offices.
Okay.
All right, so I gotta hop off.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you,
If you have
Matt.
any, additional feedback, to share, just mention it to my dad and he'll share it with me.
Okay,
Thanks, Matt. Nice job.
All right, thank you,
Well,
everyone. Have a
thank
good
you
night.
very much, Matt.
thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So I just wanted to say, because I have to probably leave, that I think the tool that they've given us is great, and I think we can work with it with those 2 tweaks that he mentioned tonight. So I would go forward if I had a vote, or I'll make a motion to whatever we have to do. Alan, what do we have to do? Vote to approve?
Well, if the consensus is you're satisfied with what they have given in the work that they've done, then I'll be asking at the our upcoming meeting to that's what I did for the Education Subcommittee, and I would like to release their check because we're going to be moving into another phase. So
Okay.
Joanne has been, holding that, and she's waiting to hear from, I guess, Greg and I, that, yeah, please release the check. Joanne? Yeah.
Release the check?
And
All right.
I had a concern that there was,
Committee.
Okay, well, I mean, I won't oppose that. I mean, my take is that we like what we've seen. We like what we've heard that we're going to get. I always like to, when possible, dot the i's and cross the t's and say it ain't done till it's done. And that the final step should be us receiving the final version, because it sounds like at this point more changes will be made, and we should then, with that final version, confirm that it's good and that we're happy and the check can be released.
so our next meeting is October 19th.
Well, I know it is.
And so I'm hoping that people play around, Mike, and I'll ask at that meeting. And if we got the green, you get what Matt's finishing up. Then
We don't have the final version yet. So if we get it in time, then hopefully we can play around.
Mark, when do you anticipate? Let's see, we're on the what's today's date?
Guess
Welcome,
what?
Jane.
I have a conflict on the 19th.
Thank you.
I have to be at another meeting at 7 on the 19th, so.
Ours is at 6. Is your meeting in the same
Oh, okay,
location?
mine's at 7. All right,
Okay,
okay.
So I think rather than hold out for the final version, we should do like the Treasury Department and call this the final interim report. And that allows for further tweaking. And I think in good faith, we could issue this payment if the business office is comfortable. And that would be my proposal.
Well, Alan, are you expecting to get the go-ahead to release the check on the 19th? Is that what you're saying?
no, I wanted to find out, because basically I'm asking the same group. If you're comfortable with releasing the check, which is what I did with Deb in her group, then I just had made it official at the full board meeting because there was a time crunch. This is, I would agree with what David's saying. We have a long-standing relationship and with
Right.
Mark, and they're not going anywhere. And so I would agree with David. I'm sure they want to make sure that we're satisfied with the final product. And so in good faith, I certainly don't have an issue with releasing it. Joanne, your thoughts?
I'm just gonna release it when you all tell me to release it. So if you're comfortable, then I can. If you're not, and you want to wait till the 19th, I can wait until then.
Okay, and we do have some other things to talk about before I'm willing to go ahead with it, because the tool is one piece of what they said they would deliver.
Okay.
And that's next on the agenda.
All right, I gotta go.
All right, I have about 20 more minutes left, and then I have another meeting. It'll be my fourth Zoom
Okay.
meeting. Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get through this in 20 minutes then.
Mine,
the
I
screen
won't
just-
be here 20. I might be, I don't know what they're doing out there, but I can see them in the parking lot.
Okay. Well, I asked everybody to be ready to talk about this, so I hope everybody is. They promised to provide a tool. We just talked about the tool. Why don't I just go through the list? If you notice I'm missing anything, just speak up. We asked for an explanation of how to use information on the DESI website to get attending enrollment from foundation enrollment, factoring in, choice out, charter out, tuition, et cetera. And my take on that is that they were basically told by DESI that that can't be done. So I'm not happy about that, but I'm willing to say that Mark and Matt have done what they can on that.
Mhm.
I agree.
Okay. They,
Like, may I make a comment on that?
sure,
I agree with you. On the other hand, I have an idea. It's a wag in a sense, but I have met the person that developed DART and developed radar for DESI.
Hmm.
I'm not going to promise you anything, but let me speak with her about what you would like to see. And let me see if she has ideas that might get you close to what you're looking for. Notwithstanding
great.
what DESI has formally sent to us in an email.
okay. Mark, that would be great if you could do that.
Yeah, no promises, no
I'd love to see
promises.
that.
Okay,
Thanks for trying. Yeah, nice.
Okay. We also were expecting to get salary schedules, health and dental insurance schedules,
Mhm.
and for both current employees and retirees. Mark, maybe you can tell me, are those going to be part of the tool?
they're in there.
They're in
Okay.
there.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I've seen them. I
Well,
played.
the proposed ones for a new district?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Let's see, 5-year budget with assessment projection. I assume that's in the tool. Assess whether a district formed by combining the two districts would have sufficient student enrollment to provide financially sustain excellent educational opportunities. I think, Jane, I think that came from you.
Probably did, and I don't know that they've given us anything like that or even any encouragement in that direction.
Well, I see that in two parts. I think they have in that, you know, they've pretty much have addressed it's not sustainable or not favorable to some towns into the formation of a district. So I think they gave us that part. The educational piece, I don't think they can give that to us right now. So we may have had an ask that was not realistic.
That's our charge. That whole statement is what this committee is charged with.
Right, but the Education Subcommittee, we had I don't know if you were on when we had this previously, a long dialogue about the expectations and what we were getting from the Education Subcommittee. So,
I'll listen to the tape and
yeah,
get that.
so we
you don't have
did
to
talk about
reiterate
that.
it.
So we
Right,
can't, yeah, they couldn't develop something from information they didn't get. But the tool allows for us to plug that in.
Well, and Jane, and I'd add that I agree with you that is our charge as a subcommittee. But that's not the quite same thing as saying that the Abrahams Group is capable of delivering it to us. We may have to do that on our own,
Well, I
based on
think
what
that,
we have received.
right, and it shows us where work needs to be done, because the reason that it's not financially advantageous is not our fault, not our creation.
Right.
It is the creation of DESE and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, who both need to change their act. And I don't know if we're capable of making them change their act, but we may have to try.
I agree.
Right, and that will be a conversation to be continued on that one. I definitely.
Right.
But I'd say in
Okay.
terms of whether the Abrahams Group has delivered what we were expecting, I think they've delivered as much as they could in that area, given the limitations of the information available. As Alan
I would
says,
agree with that, yes.
I agree
They
too.
couldn't provide what they couldn't get. And there's Student Opportunity Act funding, that's definitely in the tool. And then there was let's see, under 5-year budget, there was talk about analyzing and summarizing the methodology by which costs will be shared, and review regional agreements on their respective assessment methods, and decide whether different assessments are affordable for the different towns, and suggest alternatives. Alan, I think all that came from you. So maybe you want to speak to where you think we're at on that.
Well, I think we've gotten bits and pieces of, much of the pieces. In a sense, we have this crystal ball that we're trying to look into and trying to make sense of what's going to materialize. We did get the assessments. We did get an idea. We got information that clearly showed it's not advantageous right now, moving forward in its present form. Mark participated in a large way to craft a letter to the department to DESE to really hammer home the point of what this means if we become a larger district. So I think he went beyond the scope there to help author a letter to really kind of open shed the spotlight, a very brilliant light on what the financial issues are moving forward. So I think that he's met that to the best of I don't want to say ability, but
Current information.
yeah. Thank you, Jane.
Okay, other comments? Anybody have anything else to bring up? Now's our chance.
I would think on that issue, it's something that this committee might look at further down the road, different ways of covering the expenses and assessing the different towns. Are there other methods we can use?
Definitely. That's one reason, and it looks like it's been done nicely, but that's one reason, one of my concerns was that the tool allow us to plug in different assessment methodologies. So as we discuss and say, what happens if we do this? What happens if we do that? We could try it out and the tool would show us.
Right.
So in terms of testing things, that would be an important piece to verify that it works.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Anything else?
And he did give us, the state has a way of assessing, which we could have adopted, and the district has, through their agreement, can have their own, assessment methodology. As we see, Gil Montague is different than Pioneer and how they do that for, so, yeah, I think they've met that. And the tool will allow us to put the numbers in.
Okay. So, sorry, does someone want to say something?
I was just going to say that going forward, when we're discussing how do we assess, I don't think we should feel that we're bound by any state statutes or DESI statutes. If we come up with a new idea, we should follow it through and then try to sell it. If it works, if we can make it work, we can sell it.
Okay,
So, don't think we have to follow the law the way it's written now. Maybe we can change it.
I like your entrepreneur thinking.
Big aspirations, Jane.
Absolutely.
I have a thing hanging on my wall here. And it says the best fruit is at the end of the branch.
Wow, nice.
Oh,
So you have to go out on a limb to get it.
yeah. Hope it doesn't break. Well, if they change it, we'll call it the Jane methodology.
okay.
All right.
I still would like to make a motion to pay the Abrams Group.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion on that.
I'm going to abstain because I haven't been here for the whole meeting.
Okay, but you're present now. We have a quorum still.
David, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I vote yes.
Should we take a vote?
I'm sure. Michelle Giruso,
Yes.
David Young,
Yes.
Lynn Reynolds,
Yes.
Jane Dutcher,
Abstain.
and I'm going to abstain too because I haven't had a chance to review the latest tool, but I fully expect that everything will work out fine. I just you never know until it's all done. But the motion passes. So there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Mark. I don't mean that as a criticism of you guys. It's just I would have liked a week to look over the tool. That's all.
He's a nitpicker.
I've worked with Mark how many years now? Since the heart. It's been a long time, so I'm confident they'll deliver.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Mike, that nothing precludes, obviously, you and others, playing with the tool and offering feedback to Mark. And, if there's some adjustments, I'm sure, they'll, and Matt will make them. So, that's the good faith, effort, which I have no reservations on. So please
Right.
still play with the tool and comment. Send those on to Mark.
But
and
there's
Matt.
got to be, there's got to be an endpoint. For them and
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, in the Department of Full Disclosure, and this will be news to Mark, I'm going to contact them with respect to doing some modeling and evaluation of Warwick's plan to become independent. And I think it'll be helpful and tie back into the sixth town and, not be in any way conflicting. And as I said, I haven't said a word to Mark yet, but it's just occurred to me that it seems appropriate to share with folks.
Thank you for doing that.
And-
That saves me the phone call.
Anybody see a problem with that?
None.
No,
No,
Hey, you're the
And
town
for-
administrator.
Well, just as an informational item, I just got off a couple hour Zoom meeting with a commission that's looking at small rural schools, not just regionalization. And the state seems to have regionalization as the solution to, fix all the problems. And their point is that no, it may work for some districts, but not others. And that's what the conversation was about. But it also focused on, they were very interested in Warwick. And what was the other school that, in another district, there was another school that
Worthington?
closed.
Worthington.
No, it wasn't Worthington,
Oh.
but they're very interested in finding out because they were saying, one of the pushes for regionalization, is smaller. If you close a school, you save money. And they were very interested in finding out really how much did closing Warwick save the district money. So they'll be looking for that, David and Mark. And I, in that conversation, I pointed out, well, money was also shifted because the district may have saved money, but the town had to pick up those operational costs and those additional expenses. And they didn't really save money because there was no reduction in the taxes. They just repurposed the money in the Pioneer budget. And I think that kind of was not looked upon very favorably from.
They
some
might
of the
ask the same
towns.
question of Leiden.
Exactly. The district
and
saved
for-
no
and-
money on either one of
And
those.
for that
schools.
matter, I don't know if
Well, they
anybody
just
remem-
don't know. I mean, they don't know.
So.
I did look up, it's $555,000 that Pioneer takes from other funds toward retiree health insurance. So 555,000 of that 1.6 million grants is not grants. But I'll get that information to Mark. I just thought for context.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. And Alan, I think I'm going to follow up with you on that. I've got some thoughts that don't actually pertain to the subcommittee, but
Okay, yeah, let's talk.
yeah,
I wanted to call you, but I'm in Boston and was doing childcare and then I got to pick someone up at the airport. What is your number? Can you either chat it to me or give me your number? Because I should have it written in this book here. Your cell, I guess, 413.
sure. Oh,
We never call ourselves, so it's.
And everybody else's speed dial, so you don't know their number
okay.
either.
There should be a 4 in front of this, but
Okay, I am in. Here's the chat.
yeah. And you've called me before, Alan, so your phone might have my number on it.
Yeah, I'm not home.
Ah, okay.
So that's the issue. Okay, yeah, we'll talk. So this is a
Okay.
good meeting, Mike. You did a nice job
Okay.
reviewing everything and yeah, I think we've got, quite frankly, I think we've got more closer to what we needed in this one than, and this isn't comparing mark to mark, but the comprehensiveness of it certainly met the expectation. And
Right.
when you first were putting out the RFQ and ideas, Mike, I was thinking, I don't know if that's possible. So it's great. It became a reality.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to give Jane, because you got here late. Do you have any questions about? I mean, you can watch the meeting, but anything on your mind?
No,
Or shouldn't I ask?
I haven't really had a chance to look at the newest tool. I'm
The
hoping
news
that
is like today.
yeah, my life is just full of appointments lately. And hopefully I keep thinking that'll calm down and then the phone rings and we get another appointment to go to. So I don't get a chance to study things like I want to. When I do, I'll let you know what my questions are or comments.
Mark, do you have kind of an estimate or an idea when you think that Matt will be able to finish up that last piece that we talked about?
Without speaking with him, I'm going to just guess a week.
Okay. All right, we won't hold you to that, but yeah, I wanted to get kind of some idea. That's good.
Yeah,
No,
he
we'll
said
hold
it-
Mark. We won't hold.
Sorry,
Never mind.
go ahead,
Do I
David.
dare ask what the last piece is?
Sure.
Sure.
It's linking some values having to do with wages that are hard set and instead linking them. Is that right, Mike?
Yes. There are some wages on the wages tab. Most of them are linked to some sort of schedule somewhere else in the spreadsheet, but there are some which are not. They're just typed in because they came from a number of other sources. And
okay.
Matt's agreed to somehow produce what he's calling it a roster.
A summary.
That well, there's that too, but this is a roster where that has that information in it, and then those cells on that salary expense tab can link to that. So basically, everything on the expense tab will
Will link
on both expense
someplace.
tabs will link to something.
Right.
Because the issue was that almost everything did, but those few did not. And
Right, I noticed that.
he mentioned that was, and there's the latest version, which I haven't looked at. There should be a lot more linking than the V15, which we got before, or
Okay.
sorry, the V23 that we got before.
I do have one other, I think, very serious concern. Pioneer has a new business manager, for want of a better term. And I'm wondering, I'm assuming that they're probably not going to stick with Tanya's methods. So when they start feeding us information, are we going to be able to assimilate it, or are we going to
Well,
be in real trouble?
Let me address that, because that was a concern of mine, that all of a sudden new sheriff in town, we're going to see a whole new set of reports, and it's going to, the committee is in agreement that it's up to the committee. We're going to get our reports the way we've had them, or
You mean the
supposed to.
Pioneer School Committee, right?
Yeah, so.
Not this committee.
Right, but we're in terms of, they're not bringing their own financial system in, they're operating ours. And,
Okay,
and so, anything that I think would be of concern to you in that light, would need to come to the school committee.
So TMS is acting in that capacity, and David's right spot on this. His issue was, can we get the reports the way we're used to seeing them? We don't want to see all of a sudden new formats. The answer was yes, you'll get them the way that you normally get them, unless the school committee has a special request that they want to see something differently. So it
And
should
they may
be.
come in and look around and say, well, we recommend that, this be presented different.
Yeah.
Okay. That does raise a question though, Mark. It occurs to me, one of my questions has been, generally speaking, what's the process for updating the tool to use FY23 budget numbers? And it just occurred to me, I'm not clear whether we've gotten an answer to that.
I'd have to rely on Matt on that.
Okay, you want to pass that along to him?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got to bet that if we don't change our format, it makes it easier.
Well,
Yes.
I don't want to argue with you, but I want to say that because the reports you get look the same as always, doesn't mean the data behind the reports is kept the same way. And we need to get the data behind the reports to go into our tool.
Right. So one of the benefits, and I'm going to try to be really politically careful here. One of the benefits I see is having TMS come in and do a review of all the budgetary pieces for the district. And Andy Paquette, who's the CEO, in doing that, will, if people had a certain way that they were instructed to do things, if it needs to be tweaking, I'll put it that way, then at the end of the year, I'm going to feel confident that we have a strong foundation in place of employees that are working in the business office that are doing it correctly. I don't want to say I'm implying that they're not, but I'm just saying that they
more efficiently.
Thank you. They'll be, and perhaps
yes,
even differently and better.
Well, yes, I'm not. And my further question is, does TMS appreciate that they might need to communicate with the 6-town committee?
We haven't gone down that. Right now, their focus is, because they came in pretty late. So they're in catch-up mode right now and trying to, get all the end of reports together and do all the filing and get all their budget documents in place. There were a lot of pieces missing when they came in that they have to create and put in place. So their plate is full right now. Eventually, I know that so there'll be additional conversations as the year progresses.
So Jane, at this
Well,
point,
as
a school committee member and as a town coordinator, I have no email or phone contact for whoever's assigned to Pioneer. So, and I've always, in either capacity, been able to reach out to a business manager, ask a question, get it answered. And so we've got ground to cover on that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think for those school committee members present, that the decision to go with TMS was excellent. We need an interim look at our books and catch up period. And I mean, that doesn't mean to say that TMS couldn't be hired to continue or somebody else could be hired. But I think it's great that a company with a wide area of expertise and many brains going into it rather than just one was an excellent, excellent move. I'm not always praising the school district. In fact, I rarely am, but on this one, I do praise you.
All I can say in our defense is that occasionally even a blind squirrel gets a nut.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna have to run. Do you have anything else, Mike?
Okay, I don't think so unless somebody else does.
Did you set another meeting for us?
No, and I don't think
Okay.
it's going to be me setting it.
Did you get any feedback from Cassie, is it, to maybe chair?
Zero. No response.
Oh, none yet. Okay. I'll
So-
put that back on our agenda again.
Okay.
All right. All right, I
People
gotta
can't,
go.
people can't leave until they have a successor.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's
okay.
always been my role with town hall custodian. You can't quit till you've recruited your replacement.
Hey, see you later, folks. Take
Watch
care.
me.
Yeah.
We need a vote to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion?
Second,
Okay, all in favor. Alan Genovese,
Yes.
Jane Dutcher,
Yes.
David Young,
yes.
Lynn Reynolds,
Yes.
Mike Naughton. Yes, meeting is adjourned.
Joanne,
Thank
thank you
you,
for
everybody.
participating, Joanne and Mark. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Oh, where's my,
So Jane, I'll send her on a link to the meeting.
okay, great. Thank you. Sorry I was so late, but that's,
No, I understand. I
things
understand.
go.
You missed a good discussion, but hopefully you'll be fairly satisfied with the way it went.
You'll
Let's
hear
put it
from me
that
if
way.
I'm not.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Definitely
Okay.
let me know.
Okay, have a
Okay,
good
have a
night.
good night.